Hi there, my name's Marlene, and yes, I was the one standing in the middle of the mall when my sister laughed at me like I didn't belong, like I was just background noise in my own life. She had no idea the staff would call me boss, no idea the company she was trying to work for was mine. But that moment, that wasn't the worst part. The real hurt? It started long before the mall, with family dinners where I was invisible, birthdays where I barely existed. A mother who handed down heirlooms like love came with conditions. You ever been treated like the backup plan in your own family? Because I have. And what happened next might just surprise you. Greenview Mall smelled like synthetic vanilla and cinnamon pretzels. The floors gleamed too bright, like they were trying to cover up how dull everything else felt. I was only there for a walkthrough, just a quiet check-in before the showroom launch next week. But I should have known better. As I walked past the center atrium, my sister's voice cut through the air like a blade. "Oh my God, look at her!" Cherie laughed, loud enough to draw eyes from the bench of teenage girls nearby. "Who even dresses like that to go shopping? She looks like she's auditioning for a job she'll never get." I didn't stop. I didn't even turn my head, but I heard it all. Her friend giggled, probably not realizing who I was. That made it worse somehow. My grip tightened around the leather strap of my crossbody bag. I had on a dark blazer and jeans, simple, efficient, professional. But to Cherie, anything that didn't sparkle or show cleavage was ripe for ridicule. A staffer from the tech booth near the pop-up showroom spotted me and rushed over. "Miss Kasmarek," he said, handing me a tablet. "We updated the floor projection based on your specs. Let me know what you think, boss." Cherie stopped mid-laugh. I felt it. A weird drop in the air, like the AC had suddenly kicked colder. My eyes met hers for half a second. Just enough. She blinked. Once. Twice. Then looked around, realizing the workers in branded black shirts were watching me, not her. That this showroom didn't just happen to bear my company's logo, it was mine. I didn't gloat. I didn't need to. I just nodded politely to the staff and moved toward the back section to review display positioning. Behind me, I could hear her trying to recover, changing the subject, fake laughing, brushing it off like she hadn't just humiliated herself. But I didn't stay to witness it. I didn't have to. It wasn't the first time she'd tried to shrink me. In our family, Cherie had always been the one people noticed. The performer, the beauty, the girl who wore sequins to school events and turned every backyard barbecue into a fashion shoot. And me? I was the quiet one, the serious one, the girl who fixed the Wi-Fi and didn't mind sitting at the kid table well into my 20s. Cherie once told me, without irony, that I was born to be background music. She meant it as a joke. I smiled like it was one. I learned early how to turn silence into armor, how to measure my worth without applause. But the sting of her words still echoed, even now in my 30s, as a woman who built a tech firm from a kitchen table and turned it into a multi-million-dollar platform. And yet to her, I'd always be the boring one. I remember vividly Claudine's 60th birthday. Our mother had gathered the whole family at a fancy restaurant in uptown Charlotte. Linen tablecloths, candlelight, the works. After dessert, she made a small speech, then pulled out a box. Inside was a gold necklace passed down from her grandmother. A piece with sentimental value, something I knew she wore only on special occasions. "I want you to have it," she said, holding it out to Cherie. My heart didn't break exactly, but it did stumble. Cherie beamed. "Oh my God, Mom, it's beautiful!" I cleared my throat. "Wait, I thought that was going to be shared between us someday." Claudine just waved it off, not cruelly, but with that gentle condescension mother's perfect over time. "You're not into these things, Marlene. You don't really go out much, sweetheart." The table chuckled, and just like that, I was 12 again, opening a homemade birthday card while Cherie unwrapped a karaoke machine from Dad. There had never been enough space for both of us to shine, and I had stopped trying to elbow my way in a long time ago. Back in the present, I checked the showroom's display lighting, tapped through the digital projections, and made a few notes on the tablet. Outside the showroom glass, Cherie lingered. She wasn't laughing anymore. Her arms were crossed. Her eyebrows were furrowed. She tilted her head like she was seeing a stranger instead of her sister. I turned to speak to the floor lead, not bothering to acknowledge her. There was power in being underestimated. Later that evening, I stopped by my apartment for a late dinner. The view from my living room window stretched across the Charlotte skyline, tall glass buildings reflecting the pink-orange blur of dusk. I stood by the counter, eating reheated pasta from the night before, replaying the look on Cherie's face over and over again. It wasn't revenge I felt. It wasn't pride either. It was justice. For every time she'd called me the spinster with a laptop, for every family gathering where she joked I was probably dating my code, for every comment she whispered just loud enough to bruise. That moment in the mall didn't fix the past, but it gave me something it had taken years to claim: presence. And then, like a small cosmic wink, my phone buzzed. A notification from our internal HR system. New applicant, Cherie Brown. Position, Senior Finance Analyst. My fork paused halfway to my mouth. She had applied. To my company, to my team, unaware that the woman whose quietness she'd mocked for years would be the one reviewing her resume. I didn't sleep much that night. After rinsing my plate and setting it in the drying rack, I opened my laptop on the kitchen counter, too restless to leave it for morning. The city outside was hushed, Charlotte in its quietest form, but inside me, something stirred. Not anger, not glee, just the sharp stillness of irony finally showing its hand. I refreshed the Stratalyze internal dashboard. The application still sat there. Unread, technically. I clicked. There it was. Her full name, Cherie Alexandria Brown. Her resume loaded in a single, sleek PDF with gold text accents. Of course, the woman had a designer font for her name header. Senior Budget Lead, it read under her last role. I blinked. Lead? I remembered that job. She had taken it a year after her boutique line tanked. It was a quiet pivot. No grand announcements that time. Just a LinkedIn update and a few vague captions about joining the corporate climb. And now here it was, spun and reworded, crafted to sound like she'd carried the department on her back, managed quarterly audits across multi-million-dollar portfolios, guided financial strategy on emerging product lines, redefined internal budget structures. I had to hold back a laugh. She'd been a junior consultant. I knew that because I had once fixed her broken Excel sheet over Thanksgiving break. She'd asked me to help, over pie. Just make it work, she'd said, waving her fork like a wand. You're good at this boring stuff. That memory hit harder than expected. I didn't feel rage. I felt tired. Tired of being underestimated. Tired of the stories she told to make herself larger. And now, the joke had folded in on itself, because her oversized resume had landed squarely in my review queue. A different version of me might have flagged the application, maybe even rejected it outright. But that's not who I am. That's never been who I am. I scrolled back to the top and clicked, Advance to next round. A confirmation flashed. Application forwarded. Let's see who she is, without the spotlight. I closed my laptop, the weight of the screen settling like punctuation. But sleep still wouldn't come. I walked over to the window, arms folded. The skyline blinked softly in the distance, uptown towers glowing like coated lanterns. And just like that, I was 15 again. It was sophomore year. Our school hosted a spring showcase. Cherie had signed up for a dramatic monologue, something loud and sweeping from a Broadway show I can't remember now. I had quietly submitted a project to the science fair on the same day. Something about thermal conductivity in metals. At the end of the night, Mom brought roses. She gave them to Cherie, who was still in her stage makeup, basking in applause. I think she's really got something, Mom had whispered to Dad. No one asked about my project. I packed it back into its box myself. That's how it always was. And now, the same girl who once whispered, "You'd be nothing without a screen in front of you," was applying to work behind mine. I turned back from the window and opened Slack. A message from Derek, my co-founder, sat at the top. Hey, just saw a Brown on the applicant list. Any relation? I typed slowly. Older sister. Doesn't know I'm here. He replied with a single ellipsis. Then, want me to pull it? I stared at the screen, then typed, no, let's see what happens. Later that morning, sunlight started bleeding through the blinds. I made a pot of coffee, fed the cat, and tried to move on. But the buzz wouldn't leave me. I wasn't just reviewing a resume. I was watching the same old game try to play itself in a new arena, one where I held the whistle. And I was curious, more than I wanted to admit, how Cherie would navigate a space where no one knew her name, no one worshipped her wardrobe, and no one clapped on cue. This wouldn't be her stage. It would be her test. By the time Monday rolled around, the air inside the Stratalease office felt tighter than usual. Not tense exactly, just expectant. The kind of atmosphere where something is about to happen, but no one can quite name it yet. From my home office, I opened the internal system dashboard and navigated to the building's live feed. The security camera in the main lobby gave me a clear view of the entrance. Then, right on cue, there she was, Cherie. She stepped through the glass doors with the kind of confidence only someone oblivious could carry. A light camel blazer, heels too high for comfort, hair pulled back to reveal statement earrings. She shook the receptionist's hand with a grin like she was at a networking gala. "Hi, Cherie Brown. I'm starting today." She beamed, like it was her stage debut. She hadn't changed a bit. "Still performing for applause," I murmured under my breath as I sipped lukewarm coffee. She walked down the hallway, already cracking a joke to one of the junior analysts passing by. I watched her disappear from view, into the belly of a company she knew nothing about, yet already acted like she owned. 24 hours earlier, I'd sat at the same screen with a very different kind of energy. My hand hovered over the digital approval form for new hires. Her name was there, top of the list. The HR coordinator had flagged her for fast onboarding. I clicked Approve. Under the admin notes, I quietly routed her to the finance division, under a director I trusted, someone firm but discreet. I also added an encrypted tag, EK Oversight. It gave me access to every submission she'd make without her knowing. I wasn't going to interfere. Not yet. But I wasn't going to let her roam unchecked either. She won't see me, I'd thought to myself. Not unless I want her to. Now, as I watched her settle into her desk on camera, I leaned back in my chair. My apartment still smelled like burnt toast from breakfast, and my inbox was already filling with team updates. But I couldn't look away. Later that day, around lunchtime, I caught a low murmur from the staff chat, the kind that didn't use names, just hints, a screenshot, a vague question. Then someone dropped it directly into the internal break room thread. "Hey, anyone ever seen the other co-founder?" Responses came fast. "Nope, thought it was just Derek. I heard she works remotely, or maybe she's like a ghost founder? Does she even exist?" Then came a sentence that hung there like smoke. "If she's real, why hide? That's sketchy as hell." The message was from Cherie's handle. I stared at it, blinking. So, she was already poking at the curtain. That didn't take long. The thing is, there was no rule saying I had to be visible. Derek and I had built Stratalease on a shared vision, transparency for clients, privacy for founders. I wrote the code. He shook the hands. That had always been the deal. Still, her words felt personal. Not because she doubted my presence, but because the tone hadn't changed. Even when she didn't know who she was talking about, the judgment was automatic. I let the thread die out on its own. Later in the afternoon, Cherie accessed her onboarding documents. She was assigned a budget review for Q1 adjustments, a routine task, nothing high stakes. But in the system logs, I noticed something odd. She kept opening files that weren't part of her assignment. She'd opened the legacy financial approval trail. And she'd paused on one file for 5 full minutes. The signature at the bottom, E. Kaczmarek. That signature was on almost every strategic financial directive, staff changes, equipment rollouts, contract approvals. But E. Kaczmarek didn't exist on the public org chart, not under current staff, not under the board. She was digging. In her system log, she ran a name search. No matches. I could almost hear her whispering, "So, who's running this place?" As night crept in and the building emptied out, I turned off the feed. But the image of her, eyes narrowed at her screen, mind racing, stayed with me. I had seen that look before, usually in a mirror. Back then, she was the star and I was the shadow. The girl behind the science fair project no one clapped for. The one who always had the answer but was never asked the question. And now, the roles were shifting. I should have known she'd come looking for answers, in the one place I didn't expect. After a long Tuesday of back-to-back virtual check-ins, I found myself still restless well past 9 p.m., the kind of restlessness that didn't come from caffeine or a missed meal, but from tension. A familiar, pressing discomfort. Like something was off, just out of sight, but very much in motion. So instead of heading to bed, I grabbed my keys, pulled on a zip-up hoodie over my joggers, and drove to the office. The building was mostly dark when I arrived, just a few emergency lights casting long, sterile shadows in the hallway. I didn't bother using the front entrance. I had clearance for the rear access elevator, the one that led straight to the basement level, the server room. That was my safe place. There's something meditative about humming machines, the gentle whir of processors at work. The chaos of the world couldn't survive in that silence. I swiped my badge, entered the secure PIN, and let the steel door click shut behind me. The room pulsed softly with quiet energy, lines of blue and green light blinking in steady rhythms. I dropped my bag on the floor and moved toward the central terminal. This wasn't just about peace of mind tonight. I opened our audit logs and began scanning employee data transfers. Nothing dramatic, just routine checks. Then a folder pinged yellow in the logs, flagged for external access. That wasn't typical. I expanded the log. The access ID belonged to Cherie. And the document? A Q2 budget draft, still in review, not finalized. I clicked further. She'd sent it to a personal Gmail. My stomach tightened, not from betrayal, but from something else. Predictability. There was no evidence of malicious intent. She hadn't forwarded it to a competitor or leaked it. Maybe she just wanted to study it more. Maybe she thought she'd impress someone by referencing internal projections in a meeting. But it didn't matter. It was against policy. And she knew better. "Still trying to shortcut your way in," I muttered, bookmarking the violation. I didn't act, not yet, but the line was getting thinner. I stood, stretching my arms, and moved to the opposite side of the server rack. The cool air brushed my skin, grounding me. I checked the backup mirror to ensure I was alone. I always checked, even though I'd never seen anyone here after hours. Until now. The echo of fast, deliberate footsteps snapped through the silence. I froze. The only person who would be down here this late was me, unless someone else had decided to go poking around. The door creaked. Heels, not sneakers, not boots. Heels. I stepped out from behind the rack just as Cherie stopped dead in her tracks at the doorway. Her breath hitched when she saw me. "What are you doing down here?" she asked sharply. Not surprised, suspicious. I didn't flinch. "Guess I have special access," I said calmly. Her eyes scanned the room, flicked toward the terminal behind me, then back to my face. She tried to compose herself, but I could tell her brain was already racing. "That doesn't answer my question." "You're not in a position to ask one." Her posture straightened, but before she could speak again, another voice rang out from the hallway. "Marlene, got a minute?" It was Derek holding a slim folder. He stepped inside casually, flipping open the cover. "Need your signature on the vendor pricing model." I reached for the folder without breaking eye contact with Cherie. She didn't move, just watched, like a curtain had finally been pulled and she wasn't sure what stage she was standing on anymore. Derek glanced between us. "You two met yet?" "No," I said flatly. Cherie didn't answer. I took the folder, signed on the last page, and handed it back. "Thanks," Derek nodded. "Take your time. I'll be upstairs." He left without another word. The door clicked shut again. Silence. Cherie opened her mouth, but nothing came out. She stood there, eyes bouncing from the terminal to me, to the air between us that now felt impossibly charged. For the first time in our lives, she didn't look like my older sister. She looked like someone who'd been outplayed and didn't know when it happened. I didn't say anything else, just walked past her, bag slung over my shoulder. She turned to follow me with her eyes but didn't move. Let the doubt grow. It says more than I ever could. The next time I saw her outside of work was Saturday morning, at the same sun-washed corner table we'd gathered around since childhood. It was a brunch Claudine had insisted on, said she missed seeing us all together. I'd hesitated, but eventually gave in. Some routines, even the uncomfortable ones, still had a place in the family fabric. The cafe smelled like cinnamon waffles and brewed espresso. Cherie had already arrived, perched at the center of the table, loud and animated as usual, waving her mimosa like it was an accessory. She tossed around office lingo she'd barely begun to understand. Budget reallocation, strategic pivot, revenue forecast accuracy, strung together like pearls on a necklace she hadn't earned. Across the table, our Uncle Wendell chuckled mid-bite and leaned toward me. "You two working in the same place and not even talking about it? What are you, corporate spies now?" I smiled faintly but said nothing. Cherie laughed harder than necessary, flicking her hair over one shoulder. "Come on, Uncle W. It's not like I report to anyone important." I lowered my eyes to the steam curling from my coffee. She didn't know just how wrong she was. Later that weekend, I reviewed the quarterly prep deck from our finance team. Monday morning's internal sync was going to be a big one. I wasn't supposed to be in that meeting, not formally, but as head of infrastructure strategy, my signature was on every line item being discussed, so I decided to sit in. The meeting began like any other, projectors humming, people filing in, the sound of chairs scraping tile. Cherie walked in confidently with a click of her heels and set her laptop down at the head of the conference table. She began her portion of the presentation, Q3 projection overview, reading from her slides like she had practiced. Confident, articulate. For a moment, I almost thought she had it down. Then I saw the numbers. The revenue projection was off by a wide margin, not a rounding error, a full $180,000 discrepancy. I raised my hand. The room quieted. All eyes turned to me, some surprised I was even present. "That revenue line," I said evenly, "doesn't align with the pipeline inputs. We've been pulling from a new model since June." Cherie blinked, visibly caught off guard. It was based on the July forecast." "That version was deprecated," I said. "Check the access logs. The updated model is clearly time-stamped." She tried to pivot. "Well, I thought it was more accurate to show both versions." "But you didn't. You only showed the outdated one. That creates risk." The room was silent except for the faint hum of the AC unit. Her face turned a shade paler. Our director nodded. "We'll need that fixed before end of day. Good catch, Marlene." I said nothing more. I didn't enjoy the moment, but I didn't shrink from it either. As the meeting dispersed, I caught a glimpse of Cherie, still seated, her fingers motionless above her keyboard. For the first time, she wasn't performing. She looked cornered. That afternoon, I reviewed anonymous submissions for our internal innovation grant program. We'd recently launched it to encourage fresh ideas from all levels, regardless of title or tenure. One proposal stood out: tight structure, sharp financial logic, fresh angle on integrating team training into budget forecasting. It was easily the strongest of the batch. I marked it for immediate approval. 2 days later, HR pinged me to schedule a follow-up with the author. The name? Cherie Brown. I stared at the screen, lips parting just slightly. "Huh," I muttered. "Maybe there's more to her than I thought." Around the office, I started noticing subtle shifts. People no longer grouped her in the new hire category. They listened more carefully when she spoke. She wasn't exactly embraced, but she wasn't dismissed either. And Cherie? She no longer lingered in the break room like it was a stage. She came early, left late, talked less, observed more. I didn't approach her, not yet. But I watched, quietly, not out of judgment, but out of curiosity. Maybe this wasn't just a performance after all. Maybe something was changing. Then came the day she crossed a line I couldn't ignore. It started with a ping. A quiet alert on my desktop just after 8:13 p.m. I was finishing up my notes for an investor call the next morning when the compliance system flagged a red item. Restricted document sent to external contact. At first, I thought it might be a misclassification. Our system sometimes caught false positives, new vendors, third-party consultants. But when I opened the report and traced the access path, the sender's name stopped me cold. Cherie. I stared at the entry, her company email address, time-stamped, logged, the document in question, a preliminary proposal containing sensitive financial forecasts tied to a pitch for one of our most high-value clients. And the recipient? A third-party vendor, not yet under NDA. Someone she'd been coordinating with for visual materials, probably trying to make her presentation more slick. My chest tightened. This wasn't an accident. It wasn't some innocent misstep like using the wrong spreadsheet in a rush. This was careless, arrogant, dangerous. She hadn't just crossed a line. She'd sprinted past it, eyes closed, with no sense of consequence. I didn't react immediately. I just sat there staring at the screen, letting the reality harden in my mind. Then I stood, grabbed my phone, and walked out of the apartment. The air outside was cold, sharp enough to sting. I drove straight to the office. Derek's car was still in the lot, his light still on. He worked late as often as I did. When I knocked on his door, he looked up with that quiet concern he reserved for moments like this. "Got a sec?" I asked. He nodded and closed his laptop halfway. "Always." I stepped inside and dropped the printout onto his desk. He scanned the highlighted line, his brow furrowing halfway down the page. "She forwarded that?" he asked. I nodded. "From her company email, to an outside vendor. They haven't signed anything." He let out a low whistle and leaned back in his chair. "That's not just sloppy. That's a breach." I folded my arms. "She's crossing lines like they don't exist." "You knew this was coming," Derek said after a pause, voice even. "The only question is, how far will you let it go?" He sipped his coffee, watching me. "You've been protecting her in silence," he continued. "Maybe it's time she sees who she's really dealing with." He wasn't wrong. I had let it slide. I told myself it was to observe, to study her under pressure. But the truth was, I was afraid. Afraid of turning into her. Afraid that doing what needed to be done would make me cruel, cold, unforgiving. But it wasn't cruelty that fueled me tonight. It was accountability. Later, back at my apartment, I sat down in the glow of my monitor and opened a new HR incident report. It asked for the subject. I typed, Sherry Brown. It asked for the incident category. I selected, policy violation, confidential data mishandling, and in the summary section, I kept it brief. Document, FY26 budget forecast, vendor forward without clearance. Breach, external sharing prior to NDA. I attached the compliance log and clicked forward. The to-field autofilled Derek's address. Above the message body, I wrote one sentence, no more warnings. Then I hit send. I closed my laptop and leaned back in my chair, letting the silence settle around me. Outside, the city pulsed like a distant heartbeat. But inside, I felt nothing. No guilt, no regret. She'd earned the fallout. And I wasn't going to catch her this time. Still, I didn't expect her to stay quiet. She came for my credibility next. The hallway was quiet, eerily so for mid-morning. Fluorescent lights hummed low above polished tile, casting dull reflections off the company's wall of founders. Most people walked by it without a second glance. But not her. Cherie had been on her way to finance, arms full of reports, phone in hand, when her stride slowed, then stopped. Her gaze locked on the glass panel that lined the far wall, elegantly etched with names, titles, and founding years. Legacy set in stone, or in this case, laser cut into tempered glass. And there it was, Marlene Kamerick, co-founder, chief technical architect, 2019. I watched it unfold from my office's camera display, a private feed only a handful of people even knew existed. I didn't need audio to read the moment on her face. Her body stilled, her chest rose with a sharp inhale, and her shoulders pulled back like she'd been slapped. She stood frozen, not blinking, not moving. The clipboard in her hand lowered slightly. She wasn't holding it anymore. She was holding realization. It took her several seconds before she stepped away. She didn't go into finance. She didn't even check her phone. She just walked. Later that afternoon, as the office buzzed with its usual low hum, keyboard taps, soft laughter, printer whirs, I saw Cherie again in the employee lounge. She was standing by the coffee machine when Samira, one of our newer analysts, walked up holding a sandwich. "Oh my God," Samira gushed. "Are you the one who's close to Marlene?" Cherie blinked. "Excuse me?" "You know, like, close. We all figured. I mean, you're new, but you came in strong. I heard from Ops that Derek signed off on your hire personally." Cherie's expression shifted instantly. Not confusion this time. Something else, calculation. Samira continued, oblivious. "Kinda wild, right? No one's ever seen her. Some people thought she didn't even exist, but you're clearly connected." There was a beat. Cherie smiled, tight and thin. You hear a lot of things around here. Still, if you are close to her, Samira added, lowering her voice slightly, some folks think you might be next in line for leadership. You know, if anything changes. I paused the feed right there. Even through the distance of a lens, I could feel it. Cherie wasn't just absorbing the rumor. She was deciding whether to wear it like armor or use it like a blade. It didn't take long to find out which. By 4:15 that same day, she stormed into HR. I wasn't in the building, but the call came through immediately from Lila at the front desk. Marlene, she's here. She wants to know who's been touching her financial reports. Did anyone tell her? She demanded access logs. She says someone's been undermining her role. And did you give her the names? She saw yours. We didn't hide anything. She looked upset. Good, I said softly. She should be. Later that evening, I watched the surveillance recording. Cherie at the HR counter, her voice rising, hands braced hard against the desk, face flushed with something more volatile than anger. Betrayal. She's been reviewing my work? She said, incredulous. My sister? I've been working under her this whole damn time? It wasn't just shock. It was a slow, humiliating unraveling. She turned abruptly and walked out, not toward the elevator, not toward her desk. She needed air, maybe space, maybe time. But what she needed didn't matter anymore. I sat at my console, watching the footage rewind, then play again, slower this time. Not because I wanted to savor it. I wasn't gloating. It wasn't satisfaction I felt. It was closure. And maybe just a little justice. It had never been about hiding from her. Not really. It was about seeing what she'd become when she thought I wasn't watching. It was about proving, to both of us, that identity doesn't need a spotlight. It just needs truth. And when the truth came out, she didn't fold. She fought back, hard. The invitation came 2 weeks earlier, slipped into my inbox between performance reviews and code deployment approvals. A clean corporate header, an elegant serif font. Stradley's 5-year anniversary celebration, executive recognition ceremony. I hovered over the RSVP for a full day before clicking yes. Not because I needed the attention, but because I finally stopped hiding. The day arrived with Carolina blue skies and air heavy with summer. The company's 10th floor was transformed. Linen-covered tables, champagne flutes, the scent of catered hors d'oeuvres wafting through the lobby. I wore black, tailored, structured, calm, a reminder that I was never just a technician in a hoodie. Derek took the mic near the end of the program. He spoke about growth, resilience, and innovation, pausing with a glance toward me. And now, he said, I want to introduce the real mind behind our tech, the one who's been shaping this company from behind the curtain, a quiet force, a brilliant one. He turned, arm outstretched. Marlene Kaczmarek. Applause, hesitant at first, then growing, row by row, like a wave finding momentum. I stepped onto the stage. Across the room I saw her, my mother, Claudine. Her eyes blinked rapidly as if adjusting focus. Next to her, Wendell's expression twitched somewhere between disbelief and embarrassment. Cherie wasn't in the crowd. Not yet. But she'd hear. I spoke briefly. No theatrics, just acknowledgement of the team, of our journey, of the code that had become something more than syntax. It became structure. When I stepped off the stage, the room buzzed with questions. Some eyes followed me like they'd just learned a secret, some like they'd just solved a riddle. In the hallway outside the ballroom, Claudine caught up to me, her heels tapped nervously against the tile. Why didn't you tell us? I turned to her. Would it have changed how you saw me? There was no defense in her face, no sharpness, just something softer. She nodded once, small, but enough. Wendell wandered over next, tugging at his collar. Didn't think coding could build an empire, I smiled. Didn't think silence could say so much either. He chuckled, uncertain. Then left. That evening, long after the lights dimmed and the crowd dissipated, I returned to my office. The space was dimly lit, calm. I powered on my screen. Notifications blinked. One stood out. Quarterly forecast adjusted per your comments. Thanks for the correction. S. Brown. No emojis, no fluff, just plain text. But it was the first time she'd ever acknowledged an error, No deflection, no sarcasm, just responsibility. Attached was a revised forecast, every line double-checked, no rounding slips, no padded assumptions. It was solid. I leaned back in my chair, fingers steepled beneath my chin. Something had shifted, not loudly, quietly. I closed my laptop and stepped out onto the rooftop. The air was cooler up there, softer. The city stretched beneath me, glowing like static fire. And then I saw her. Cherie stood at the far edge, hands resting on the railing. She didn't turn when I approached. "You win," she said. "It wasn't a game." A pause, then her voice lower. "I wasn't trying to be better than you, I just wanted to be seen." I moved beside her. "Well, now they see me, loud and clear." She turned. For once no smirk, no raised brow, just eyes, tired maybe, but clear. There wasn't a hug. There wasn't forgiveness spelled out in warm, sweeping dialogue, but there was acknowledgement, a shared silence, and sometimes that's all there is. And sometimes that's enough. Still, as I stood beside her, city humming beneath us, wind catching the edges of her blazer, I knew something else too. Respect doesn't erase wounds, and healing doesn't always come with closure. Monday morning carried that same quiet tension it always did, the kind of low buzz that hinted things were about to move, just not yet. My inbox was already stacked, notifications popping up like popcorn, meetings, deadlines, flagged emails, another packed day. Then one notification stood out. New CSR proposals submitted, review pending approval. I clicked it without much thought. But this one didn't land like the others. Touch the screen, touch the future. A mentorship program for young women in underrepresented tech communities. It was a solid concept. Clean, grounded, long-term. But it wasn't the idea that got me. It was the author, Cherie Brown. I paused, read it again. Then my eyes dropped to the last line, tucked into the margin almost like an afterthought. Inspired by the quiet mission of Marlene Kasmarek. That stopped me cold. Not because of what it said, but because of what it meant. Not a tribute, not a plea, just a nod. A quiet recognition. Like someone saying, "I saw what you did," even when no one else did. I sat back, staring at the screen. It wasn't just a proposal. It was a mirror held up to something I'd long put away. Not for closure, just for distance. I approved it. Not out of obligation or emotion. It was simply good, strategic, grounded, worth doing. 2 days later, the quarterly review brought us all into the boardroom. Fluorescent lights, sterile walls, that stale air of long meetings. Derek sat beside me, impassive. Cherie was 3 seats down, notebook open, focused. No theater, no flash. Wendell, newly semi-retired but still clinging to authority like a second skin, flipped through the CSR packets with a smirk. Then he said it, loud enough for everyone to hear. Bit much giving credit to someone who doesn't even like the spotlight, no? The room hushed. Not dramatic, just still. Cherie looked up, calm. "Actually," she said, "some of the most powerful people I know say the least, and do the most." She didn't raise her voice. Didn't need to. The weight was in the restraint. No one responded. But the silence wasn't empty. It was full. A kind of shift you could feel more than name. I didn't jump in. Didn't need to. She didn't look at me, but there was a glance, indirect but clear. Not a request. Not even a connection. Just alignment. Like she wasn't covering me, but standing beside the truth. The week blurred forward. Tasks, calls, the usual chaos. Then Sunday came again. Family brunch, same cafe, same wobbly table, same plastic-coated menus from a decade ago. I walked in late. Cherie was already there, dressed down, flats, denim, hair tucked behind one ear. A mimosa at her side, her notebook half open. This wasn't work mode. This was just her. The small talk dragged. Gas prices, weather, election rumors. I kept quiet, chewing slowly. Then Wendell lowered his paper and asked, "You still doing that freelance data thing?" Before I could answer, Cherie cut in. "Uncle, she runs the company I now work for. The one whose tools you use to file your taxes." Flat, factual. Forks paused midair. No one knew where to look. Then Claudine, always quiet, reached across the table and placed her hand on mine. Just a touch. No words, no performative grace, And somehow, that was enough. That night I walked home, letting the breeze carry the weight of the day. The mural on Davidson Street came into view, faces painted across brick, voices of the past frozen in color. I stopped. I didn't feel triumphant. Or bitter. But I didn't feel invisible anymore either. Maybe justice isn't about getting the last word. Maybe it's about not needing to. Maybe healing doesn't come with big declarations. Maybe it's the small shifts, the way someone who once talked over you starts listening. At the corner, I whispered, to myself, to the night. We don't have to go back to being sisters the way we were. A pause. But at least now she sees me, and that's a start. Sometimes the hardest place to be seen is in the spaces closest to us, the ones we call home, the families we come from, the workplaces we've helped carry on our backs. You can show up, work hard, stay loyal, and still feel invisible. For years, I chased a kind of recognition that never came. I thought if I just kept my head down, if I stayed quiet and steady, someone would notice. That my silence was a kind of strength. That dignity meant never demanding anything. Not attention, not space, not even credit. But here's what I know now. Silence without boundaries doesn't protect you. It erases you. And waiting for others to hand you your worth is a game you'll never win, because it was never theirs to give in the first place. Through my own experience, both personal and professional, I've come to understand something I wish someone had told me sooner. You don't need anyone's permission to take up space. You don't need approval to be powerful. And sometimes, the boldest kind of justice isn't a confrontation. It's simply showing up as your full self, unapologetically, while the people who once overlooked you slowly realize they were wrong. Maybe you've been underestimated. Maybe you've made yourself small to avoid tension. Maybe you've downplayed your voice just to keep the peace. If any of that feels familiar, let this be your sign. You don't have to shrink anymore. You don't have to wait for the right moment to stand tall. Be the version of yourself they never expected, and let them catch up, because you're not too much. You're not too loud. You're not asking for too much. You're asking for exactly what you've earned: respect, recognition, and room to breathe. Now I want to turn this over to you. Have you ever felt invisible in your own family, or like your work and worth were overlooked in your job? What was the moment that shifted something for you? Not to prove anything to others, but to finally choose yourself. I want to hear your story. Drop a 1 in the comments if any of this hit home, or let me know where you're tuning in from. I'm always reading, and I'm always listening. And if this video gave you even the tiniest spark, even if it was just a quiet, steady yes inside your chest, hit that subscribe button. There's more coming, more stories, more truths. Because this isn't just about me anymore, it's about us. And I'm just getting started.
That's why I asked you to repay the debt. My husband suddenly left me with a huge debt and disappeared. No matter how much I tried to contact him, he never responded. What am I supposed to do now? There's no way I can pay off such a large debt. Luckily, someone was there to encourage me when I felt lost. "Mom, cheer up," said my lovely daughter. "My name is Mary. I'm 37 years old, working part-time and being a housewife. My husband's name is Jeremy, and we are a family of 3. I met Jeremy at a mixer I attended just to help with the numbers. I was nervous, but Jeremy talked to me and made me feel comfortable. We got along well and decided to exchange contact information. As we continued to talk, we developed a special feeling for each other. It didn't take long for us to start dating. Who would have thought I'd end up in a relationship with someone I met at a mixer? After our first date, I told my older sister Karen about Jeremy. She laughed and said, "Really? I never thought you'd choose a boyfriend from a mixer. I assumed you'd date someone from work or something. I've always been the quiet type, not good at socializing, and rarely attended parties. It was an unexpected twist. You went because you were asked to help with the numbers, right?" She asked. "Exactly," I replied. When I showed her a photo from my date with Jeremy, she said excitedly, He's surprisingly handsome. We briefly updated each other about our lives and then parted ways for the day. Karen is not married and doesn't seem to have a boyfriend. She enjoys her single life, finding it more relaxed and comfortable, and shows no particular interest in marrying or having a boyfriend. While I can understand her mindset, my heart is set on a future with Jeremy. If our relationship progresses smoothly and we are blessed with marriage and children, it would be wonderful. On my way home after chatting with Karen, I couldn't help but smile. A few years later, I married Jeremy. I still remember the moment he proposed. I was so emotional that I couldn't hold back my tears. We moved into a new apartment, starting our married life together. Having lived separately before, being with Jeremy every day felt like a dream. Because of our different work hours, we rarely came home at the same time, but we always ate dinner together, slept under the same blanket, and cherished our time together. On our days off, we would relax at home or go for drives, enjoying each other's company. A few months later, we were blessed with a baby girl named Laura. The joy of her birth is something I'll never forget. Our parents and relatives were overjoyed and sent us many congratulatory gifts. Just before Laura was born, I resigned from my job to focus on our family. Jeremy, always thinking of me, helped with housework and taking care of Laura, even when he was tired. "I'll take care of Laura so you can rest for a bit," he would say. I felt so lucky to have married such a wonderful person. Living with Jeremy, who treasured us, was truly heartwarming. However, a few years later, I regretted marrying Jeremy. Several years after Laura's birth, Jeremy suddenly quit his job. He explained to me that he had issues with a new boss at work, which affected his mental well-being, and he reached his breaking point. I understood why he left his job, but I was upset that he hadn't talked to me about it. Our family relied on his salary, and he should have discussed such a big decision with me first. That was so sudden. "Have you already thought about your next job?" I asked. "Yeah, don't worry. I'll figure something out," Jeremy replied vaguely, which didn't ease my worries at all. All I can do now is trust him. Fortunately, Jeremy found a new job quickly, which was a relief. I thought about working too, but since Laura is still young, I want to be home with her. "Is everything okay at the new job? Have you settled in?" I asked. "Yeah, somehow," he replied. "Did something happen? Are you not getting along with your boss or colleagues?" I told you I'm fine. Don't worry so much. "Look, I'll take care of Laura so you can go take a bath," Jeremy said. "Really? Thank you," I responded. He seemed different, but I didn't want to upset him, so I handed Laura to him and went to take a bath. A few days later, Jeremy came home looking sad. As I tried to ask him what happened, I remembered the time he suddenly quit his job. "Did you quit your job again?" I asked, fearing the worst. "Yeah, I did. I just couldn't get along with the people there. I couldn't stand being bossed around by someone much younger than me," he said. "I see, but we'll get through this. We'll find another job. I'll help in any way I can," I reassured him. Suddenly, Jeremy's expression changed, and he raised his voice. "Hey, what's with that look? You don't like that I quit. You eat because I work. You just stay at home and act all high and mighty." He threw his bag onto the table, startling me. "What's gotten into you all of a sudden?" I asked. "Shut up. Just be quiet," he snapped. Jeremy grabbed a whiskey from the fridge and drank it in one gulp. I had never seen him this angry before. I felt terrified. I've always been grateful to him and tried to be supportive. But now, an extremely angry Jeremy shouted at me for a while before plopping down on the sofa, looking grumpy. I was so shocked that I could only accept his words, and this incident created a rift in our relationship. Since then, Jeremy has been in a cycle of finding and quitting jobs. We lived in uncertainty and had many anxious days. Jeremy, can't you be more serious about your job? I asked one day. I tried to understand his feelings and said nothing at first, but I couldn't keep silent any longer. You are annoying. If you have complaints, then you work and earn money. You rely too much on me, he snapped back. But there's Laura to consider, I replied. So what's your point? He retorted. Lately, Jeremy has been losing interest in Laura and seems to be avoiding her. When Laura was born, he took great care of her and was genuinely happy. Now he feels like a completely different person. No matter how much I pleaded, Jeremy showed no interest in continuing his work. Eventually, I decided to leave Laura with Karen and started working myself. I'm really sorry for having to leave her with you, I said. It's okay. Laura and I will wait together, Karen reassured me. Laura had just started kindergarten, so I wasn't too worried about leaving her. I trusted Karen, and Laura was very mature and calm for her age. She even liked reading newspapers and could write long sentences. She was quiet and composed, which made me worry if she'd make friends in kindergarten. But she did, and she enjoyed her time there. Seeing her happy made me feel better about working. I found a job faster than expected and started working full-time. The pay was better than I thought, so even with Jeremy not working, we could manage. The work environment was pleasant, and I enjoyed my busy days. A few years later, Jeremy finally found a stable job. It seemed he had found a place he liked. I felt a huge relief. Jeremy's mood improved, and he started acting like the man I married. He became more considerate, often asking if I was tired or finding things tough. His change surprised me, but it seemed like job stability gave him peace of mind. Laura was growing up healthy, and Jeremy started being a caring father again. Watching them play together warmed my heart. Still, I was anxious about leaving my job and things going back to how they were before, so I continued to rely on Karen for childcare. How's Laura? Is she doing well? I asked Karen. Don't worry, she's playing happily, Karen replied. Knowing Laura was happy made me feel at ease, and I plan to keep depending on Karen's help. I have been thinking about giving Karen something she liked to show my appreciation. Several years passed, and Laura was now in third grade. She went to school every day with great enthusiasm. Our family bond was strong and loving, just like before. I wondered what had caused the past problems between Jeremy and me because our home life felt stable now, almost as if those issues were forgotten. One day, Jeremy suggested, "Ever think about getting a new car?" A new car? I asked. Yeah, our current car is good, but it's getting old and hard to maintain. Our car was indeed old, and repair costs were piling up. You might be right. Maybe we should consider a new car. I knew you'd agree. By the way, I've already got some catalogs ready, Jeremy said. I was surprised by his eagerness, but we started looking through the catalogs together. Laura, come here. Which car do you want to ride in? Let's decide together, Jeremy called. The three of us enjoyed looking through the car catalogs. However, I couldn't have imagined that this day would mark the beginning of unexpected events. A few months later, the new car we chose was delivered. It was a brand new model costing over $255,000. The loan was under my name because of Jeremy's unstable work history. I was determined to work even harder to pay off the loan, and I believed Jeremy felt the same way. But my hopes were shattered. Jeremy stopped coming home and disappeared along with the new car. Could he have gotten into some trouble? What should I do? Just then, my cell phone rang. It was Jeremy. Hello, Jeremy. What are you doing? Where are you now? I asked, worried. Hey, calm down, he replied. But you disappeared all of a sudden, and the new car is gone. What happened? Did you get into some trouble? I tried to convey how worried I had been, But Jeremy laughed and said something unbelievable. "I found a new lover. She's more important to me than you." "What? What do you mean?" "Let me be clear. I've fallen in love with someone else. I've already taken care of the divorce papers. I'd appreciate it if you stopped getting involved." "Wait, divorce? I can't believe this." I was shocked by the mention of divorce papers. I remembered a discussion we had during a big fight a while ago. Filing the papers means both parties agreed to the divorce. I deeply regretted letting my emotions take control back then. "Oh, by the way, I have a debt. I'm counting on you to repay it." "What? How much debt are we talking about?" "About $400,000, give or take. I'm leaving all the repayments to you." With those words, Jeremy abruptly hung up the phone. I never thought something like this would happen to me. Were all his kind smiles just lies? As these thoughts crossed my mind, I felt the strength drain from my body. "Mom, what happened?" Laura rushed over, looking concerned as I slumped to the floor. "It's okay, honey. Thank you." I tried to put on a brave face, but inside I was filled with anxiety. How will I manage our life now with such a massive debt looming over us? The thought of the $400,000 debt made me feel suffocated. On top of that, there was still the car loan to think about. In a state of panic, I checked my bank balance. I searched everywhere for my ATM card, but couldn't find it. Frantically, I launched my bank app on my smartphone. To my horror, the account balance had significantly decreased. Of course, I had no memory of withdrawing such an amount. Jeremy was the only suspect. I tried to contact him, but of course, there was no response. "It's all over," I thought, my mind going blank. I decided to focus on earning money and to keep this a secret from Karen to avoid unnecessary worry. I also kept it from young Laura. A few weeks after Jeremy disappeared, I lost consciousness at work. When I came to, I found myself lying in a hospital bed. "Where am I?" "Mary, are you awake, sis?" Karen entered the room with a shaken expression, and Laura was standing beside her. It seemed I had fainted due to extreme stress. "The doctor told me I needed to stay in the hospital for several days for detailed tests." "Hospitalized? What should I do?" "After you're discharged, let's talk about Jeremy," Karen said. "Laura told me everything." "Laura told you?" I was surprised. "Did you know?" "Actually, I overheard Dad's phone call," Laura said. I was shocked that Laura knew the truth. When it was time for my discharge, I felt down, worried that Karen might scold me for letting Laura find out. The next day, various tests were conducted, and the results showed that my poor health was due to cancer. Fortunately, it was still in the early stages, and there was hope for recovery through surgery. The surgery went well, but returning to work immediately seemed impossible. I had no savings, and medical bills were piling up. During these challenging times, Karen and Laura became my pillars of support. When Laura explained the situation with Jeremy and my health to Karen, she was even more furious than I had expected. Karen tried to locate Jeremy to make him repay the debt and medical bills, but his whereabouts remained unknown. "We don't have any leads on Jeremy's current location. What do we do?" I asked. Karen had a suggestion. "The car that's under your name, Jeremy has it, right? How about we try to get it back?" "Is that really possible?" I asked, surprised. Karen shared more information. "Actually, I found out where Jeremy is currently working. He's working for a different company inside the building where I work. Though I usually work remotely, I've seen him there." "Then let's go to Jeremy's place right away," I said, eager to confront him. If we didn't take action soon, he might disappear again. Karen stopped me. "Don't rush. We need a solid plan, not just a hasty approach. Laura and I have come up with a good idea." "That's right, a plan," Laura said, smiling. I couldn't grasp the implications behind their demeanor. Watching them silently, Laura beamed and reassured me, saying, "Don't worry. Everything's set up." I didn't know the specifics, but everything became clear a month later. While at Karen's house, there was a sudden incoming call. Checking the caller ID, it was Jeremy. Initially ignored the call, but it kept coming in repeatedly. Something must have happened. Gathering my courage, I answered. Jeremy pleaded in a frantic voice. "Hey, help me out, please." "What?" "I'll explain everything later. Just get here now. I'm about to be arrested." Jeremy shared his location and quickly ended the call. Having overheard the conversation, Karen and Laura finally revealed the turn of events. "Actually, we reported the car as stolen. It was Laura's idea," Karen said. "Impressive, right?" Laura blushed and looked down. Filled with gratitude, I thanked them and hurried to the place where Jeremy was waiting. The park he specified was surprisingly close to my home. There were police officers gathered around Jeremy, who seemed to be interrogated about something. We hurriedly approached him. First, we explained the situation to the police officers and had them leave. Afterward, Jeremy ushered us into his car and began narrating the events that led to this. A confident-looking woman sat boldly in the passenger seat, her legs crossed, staring at us with a cold gaze. "Thanks for coming, but why did the police come to me?" Jeremy asked, seemingly oblivious to the seriousness of the situation. "Because I reported the car as stolen. After all, that car is mine," I explained. "What? We're divorced, so we have no current ties." Reporting it stolen was the natural course of action. You probably never expected to be reported for car theft. Laura continued the conversation with Jeremy, who was visibly shaken. "Dad, why did you leave us behind? Why won't you pay back the money yourself? Explain." Jeremy let out a sigh and looked at us with an exasperated expression, but remained silent. "If you're just going to remain silent, I'll report it to the police. Do you realize that using my name without permission is a crime?" Hearing this, Jeremy began to talk bit by bit. He mentioned his mistress, Pamela. Apparently, she had recently joined the company where Jeremy worked. They connected during a company welcome party, which developed into a romantic relationship. Shockingly, about 5 months ago, he found out she was pregnant. Looking at Pamela's stomach, it was evident that she was expecting. "So you chose her over us and left," I said. "That's a harsh way to put it, isn't it?" Jeremy replied. "But the fact remains, you left, right?" Karen suddenly interjected. Jeremy seemed taken aback, but Karen ignored his surprised expression and continued her line of questioning. She began to lash out at Jeremy, criticizing his past actions. She pointed out his irresponsible behavior towards the family, his constant job changes, and his quick temper, which often resulted in him raising his voice in anger. Jeremy, deep in thought, or perhaps just tuning her out, bowed his head and remained silent. Pamela's face showed clear irritation at this. She pressed him about the reason for the $400,000 debt, but he stayed mute. Unable to hold back any longer, Pamela revealed a shocking truth. "He borrowed money in his wife's name to buy me luxury branded items. I was really lucky." A debt of $400,000 due to gifts for Pamela? What on earth did he buy? From her story, it seemed he purchased several expensive luxury items. It was hard to believe, but what was more curious was how easily Pamela revealed the reason for Jeremy's debt. If they were in cahoots, revealing such information would put them at a disadvantage. While thinking about this, Laura asked Pamela, "Your belly's pretty big. Is it a baby? When are you due?" "In about 5 months, I guess," Pamela replied. Giving birth in 5 months didn't seem right. If she was supposedly impregnated 5 months ago, shouldn't there be more time? Karen noticed this inconsistency too and pressed Pamela further. "Is that baby really Jeremy's? Isn't it odd for the baby to be due in 5 months? Whose child is it?" Karen asked directly. Although surprised, Pamela didn't seem intent on hiding anything. Actually, the child isn't Jeremy's. I thought about keeping it a secret, but I figured it would be a hassle to get further involved with him, so I'll just spill the beans. Is that why you were honest about the debt too? Karen inquired. Yeah, there's no point being with Jeremy anymore after all, Pamela said with a mocking expression. The atmosphere was heavy and unbearable. I wanted to get away from there right now. Meanwhile, Jeremy stared at Pamela with an incredulous expression. Hey, what are you talking about? This is a joke, right? Jeremy asked. Why would it be a joke? I mean exactly what I said, Pamela replied. The tension increased, making the atmosphere even more stifling. Amidst this, Karen took charge of the situation. Anyway, I'll call the police, she said. Huh? What are you talking about? Jeremy asked, panicking. I couldn't care less about you too, but remember, borrowing money under Mary's name is a crime. Plus, using the car without permission is also a crime, especially since Jeremy and Mary are complete strangers now. Karen instructed me to contact the police. Jeremy and Pamela frantically tried to talk their way out of the situation. However, I ignored their pleas and made the call. After a while, I could hear sirens approaching. This should make them face the consequences. The issues regarding the debt and the car should soon be resolved. I felt a huge relief that things were finally being sorted out. In the end, Jeremy and Pamela faced legal action. They didn't end up in prison, but they had to take responsibility by making compensation payments, repaying the debt, and paying child support. They tried to reduce the payments through lawyers, but a secret recording that Laura had made was used as evidence, so their requests were denied. Laura had made the recording because of a scene from a TV show she had watched with Karen. While I thought she was very quick-witted, I couldn't help but wonder what kind of shows Karen had shown Laura. After all that, Laura and I now live with Karen. Laura didn't face any issues commuting to school since our new home was close to our previous residence. The car was safely returned, and it seems Jeremy is somehow managing the debt. If Jeremy hadn't made those wrong decisions in the first place, he wouldn't have had to face such hardships. In this whole incident, the presence of Karen and Laura was significant, and thanks to them, the situation is heading towards resolution. I'll work hard from now on, hoping for a peaceful life with the two of them.
Hey everyone, I'm Olivia Thompson. I blink my eyes open, the harsh fluorescent lights stinging my retinas. Everything's blurry. Where am I? What happened? I try to move, but my body feels impossibly heavy, like it's made of lead. She's awake. Doctor, come quick. A voice calls out, and suddenly the room fills with activity. Faces I don't recognize hover over me, talking quickly. I catch fragmented words from their conversation. Coma, 6 months. Car accident. Wait, what? Olivia, honey, can you hear me? It's my mom's voice, but something about it feels off, like guilt is wrapped around each word. Mom? I croak, my voice rough and raspy from disuse. What's going on? You've been in a coma, sweetie. There was an accident, my dad adds, his voice strained and unfamiliar. As the fog in my mind slowly starts to clear, questions flood in. Where's Ethan? And Amber? A thick silence falls over the room, suffocating. The doctor clears his throat. Let's focus on you right now, Olivia. How are you feeling? Over the next few days, I learn the extent of my injuries and the grueling road to recovery ahead. But something still feels wrong. My parents are acting strange, and the hospital staff seems to tiptoe around me. I haven't seen Ethan or Amber once. Mom, where's my engagement ring? I ask one day during her visit. She flinches, then quickly glances at the clock. Oh, look at the time. I should get going. Your father will be here soon. As I regain my strength, I overhear my parents whispering in the hallway. We need to tell her the truth, John, my mom says urgently. Not yet, Helen. The doctor said it could set back her recovery, my dad responds, his voice low. Tell me what? What aren't they saying? That night, I convinced Sarah, the night nurse, to let me borrow her phone just for a few minutes. She hesitates but hands it over, glancing nervously around. My fingers tremble as I open Facebook and my heart drops into my stomach. There on my profile are dozens of recent posts and photos. But they're not of me. They're of Amber. Amber at my job. Amber with my friends. Amber with Ethan. My hands shake as I scroll through post after post. It's like staring into a warped mirror, my life reflected back at me, but wrong. So wrong. Nurse, I call out, my voice trembling. I need to speak to my parents, now. Sarah rushes in, concern etched on her face. Olivia, what's wrong? I turn the phone towards her, showing her Amber's face grinning back from my profile. Everything, I whisper, everything is wrong. As Sarah leaves to call my parents, I lie there, staring at the ceiling, my mind racing. What the hell happened while I was asleep? And more importantly, what am I going to do about it? The door creaks open and my parents walk in, guilt etched deep into their faces. It's time for answers, and I'm not letting them leave until I get them. Start talking, I demand, my voice steadier than I feel. What's going on with Amber? Where's Ethan? And don't you dare lie to me. The silence is thick and uncomfortable. My mom opens her mouth, then closes it again, her eyes darting nervously to my dad. I'm going home, I declare, struggling to zip my bag with my still weak hands. Honey, maybe that's not the best idea right now, Mom says softly, exchanging a worried glance with Dad. Why not? It's my apartment, isn't it? The silence that follows feels deafening. Isn't it? I repeat, more forcefully this time. My dad sighs deeply. Olivia, there's something we need to tell you. But I don't wait to hear the rest. I'm already out the door, hailing a cab. My parents trail behind, protesting weakly, but I don't care. The ride home is tense, filled with their vague warnings and my cold, stony silence. As soon as I walk through the door of my apartment, I see them, Amber and Ethan, cuddled up on my couch in my living room, like they belong there. Like I'm the intruder. What the hell? My voice is barely above a whisper, but the shock in the room is palpable. Amber jumps up, her face a mask of guilt and fake concern. Olivia, you're home. We didn't expect you so soon. Clearly, I spit the word out, my heart pounding. What are you doing here? In my home? With my fiancé? Ethan stands, looking everywhere, but Liv, I can explain, Ethan says, his voice wavering. Oh, this should be good. I snarl, my initial shock quickly morphing into rage. Explain how you're cuddling with my sister in our home. Amber steps forward, her hands raised in a placating gesture. Olivia, please, we were just trying to keep your life intact while you were away. I laugh bitterly. I was in a coma, Amber, not on vacation. And how exactly does that explain you living in my home, sleeping with my fiancé? It's not like that, Ethan interjects weakly. Then what is it like? I demand, my voice sharp. Because from where I'm standing, it looks like my twin sister has stolen my entire life. Amber's face crumples. I was just trying to help. Your job, your apartment. I couldn't let it all slip away while you were gone. And Ethan? Screwing my fiancé, was that part of your heroic efforts too? The silence that follows is damning. Ethan's face turns pale and Amber looks like she might be sick. How long? I ask, my voice dangerously quiet. How long has this been going on? Ethan swallows hard, his eyes avoiding mine. Liv, we started before the accident. He hesitates. I'm so sorry. The world tilts as his words sink in. Before the accident. They've been betraying me for over 6 months, maybe longer. I turn to my parents, who've been hovering anxiously in the doorway. Did you know? I asked, my voice shaking. Their guilty faces tell me everything I need to know. We thought, if you woke up, the shock might be too much, Mom stammers. I let out a harsh, broken laugh. Well, consider me thoroughly shocked. Without another word, I grab my bag and storm out, ignoring their pleas to talk it out. I don't stop until I find myself at a coffee shop, my hands trembling as I dial Sophie's number. When she picks up, I finally break down. Olivia? Oh my God, is it really you? Amber said you didn't want to talk to anyone after. Amber lied. I choke out. She's been lying about everything. 20 minutes later, Sophie bursts into the coffee shop, wrapping me in a fierce hug. I can't believe this, she mutters. I knew something was off, but I never imagined. As I pour out the whole sordid story, her face cycles through shock, anger, and finally, determination. I take a deep breath, staring at my phone. It's time to start reclaiming my life, I say. I dial HR at my company, steeling myself for the conversation ahead. Hello, this is Olivia Thompson. I need to discuss my employment status. There's a long pause. I'm sorry, but Olivia Thompson is currently employed and performing excellently. Is this some kind of joke? My heart sinks. No, it's not a joke. I'm the real Olivia Thompson. I've been in a coma for 6 months, and my twin sister has been impersonating me. Another pause. I think you should speak with Mr. Jenkins. Half an hour later, I sit across from my former boss, watching his face cycle through disbelief, shock, and finally, understanding. Good God, Olivia, I don't even know what to say. Tell me about it, I mutter. Can you help me? I need my job back. My life back. Mr. Jenkins sighs, rubbing his temples. I want to help Olivia, but legally, this is a nightmare. Amber's been working as you, signing contracts, making decisions. It's not as simple as just swapping you back in. I leave his office with a vague promise of support but a growing realization. I need legal help. That's how I find myself sitting in the office of Rachel Chen, an employment lawyer with a no-nonsense attitude. Identity theft, fraud, potential embezzlement, Rachel lists, scribbling notes. We've got a case, Olivia, but it won't be easy. We need evidence. Lots of it. I nod, determination settling in. Where do we start? Friends, colleagues, anyone who can vouch for your identity. And Amber's deception. Bank statements, emails, anything that shows she's been acting as you. Sophie becomes my partner in crime, helping me track down old contacts. It's a mixed bag. Some are shocked to hear from me, having bought into Amber's lies. Others, like my old college roommate Jenna, are furious on my behalf. I knew something was off, Jenna exclaims. Amber never could nail your laugh. Count me in as a witness. But for every ally, there's a setback. Rumors start circulating about my mental state. I heard she's confused from the coma I overhear at a coffee shop. Thinks her sister stole her life. Sad, really. I grit my teeth, pushing through the anger and hurt. Every obstacle only fuels my determination. Amidst the chaos, there's one bright spot. David, my physical therapist. He's the first person in ages who sees me for me, not as Amber's confused twin. You're making great progress, he encourages during one of our sessions. How's everything else going? I find myself opening up to him, sharing my frustrations and small victories. His unwavering support becomes a lifeline. You've got this, Olivia, he says one day, his hand resting on my shoulder. Don't let them make you doubt yourself. His touch lingers, and for a moment I forget about the mess my life has become. But reality crashes back as my phone buzzes with a text from Rachel. Found something. Come to the office ASAP. An hour later, I'm staring at bank statements, my hands shaking with rage. She's been siphonning money from your accounts, Rachel explains. Small amounts at first, but they've been increasing. This is embezzlement, Olivia. We've got her. I should feel triumphant, but all I feel is exhaustion and anger. So much anger. What's our next move? I ask, my voice hard. Rachel's eyes glint with determination. We build our case, identity theft, fraud, embezzlement. Amber's going down, and we're going to get your life back. I step outside the office, my heart pounding. This is it. Months of fighting, of proving myself, have led to this moment. I take a deep breath and push open the door to Mr. Jenkins' office. He looks up, a smile breaking across his face. Olivia, come in, please. As I sit down, he slides a folder across the desk. It's done. Amber's been fired effective immediately, and I'd like to formally offer you your position back. I stare at the contract in front of me, emotions swirling inside. Relief, validation, and something else. Thank you, Mr. Jenkins, I say quietly, but I think I'm going to have to decline. His eyebrows shoot up in surprise. Are you sure? After everything? I nod, a sense of calm settling over me. I am. I'm starting my own firm. This whole experience has shown me what I'm capable of. I want to build something of my own. He leans back, a proud smile crossing his face. Well, I can't say I'm not disappointed, But I understand. You're going to do great things, Olivia. As I leave the office, my phone rings. It's Rachel. Olivia, it's happening. They're arresting Amber right now. I rush to the precinct, arriving just in time to see Amber being led out in handcuffs. Our eyes meet, and for a moment, I see a flicker of the sister I once knew. But then it's gone, replaced by cold defiance. The next few weeks are a whirlwind. The investigation reveals Ethan's complicity in the fraud, leading to his arrest as well. My parents try to reach out, leaving tearful voicemails, sending pleading texts. Olivia, please, we're so sorry. We thought we were protecting you. I delete the messages. Maybe one day I'll be ready to hear them out. But not now. Instead, I focus on the people who stood by me: Sophie, who has been my rock through it all, and David, whose steady support has turned into something more. Months pass, and my new firm is taking off. I've just landed our biggest client yet. Later that night, as David and I walk hand in hand under the stars, I reflect on my journey. I've lost so much: my old life, my family, the future I thought I wanted. But I've gained something far more valuable: a life that's truly my own. As we walk into our future together, I realize that sometimes the worst betrayal can lead to the best rebirth. I lost my old life, but I've built a new one that's all mine, and no one can take it away from me. Now I've got a question for you. If you were in Olivia's shoes, could you ever forgive your twin sister and parents for their betrayal? Or would you, like Olivia, choose to cut ties and build a completely new life? This is a tough one. On one hand, family is supposed to have your back. On the other, what Amber and her parents did was a massive breach of trust. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I'm really curious to hear where you stand on this. And hey, if you enjoyed this wild ride, hit that like button. It helps more people find these stories. And if you're new here and want more jaw-dropping tales like this, consider subscribing. I've got plenty more where this came from. Hey, everyone, I'm Lisa. I began, flashing a confident smile. I'm 32, running my own tech startup, and honestly, I'm feeling on top of the world right now. And why wouldn't I? My company, Technova, was everything I had dreamed of. 5 grueling years of blood, sweat, and tears were finally paying off. We weren't just surviving, we were thriving. On the personal front, things were just as sweet. I was engaged to Mark, this adorable software engineer who had been my rock through every high and low. We were planning our wedding, and I couldn't have been more excited. Life was perfect, or so I thought. Then I met Vanessa. Mark had mentioned his sister in passing. A bit of a drifter, unemployed, nothing to worry about. But nothing could have prepared me for Hurricane Vanessa. So Lisa. Vanessa began with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Mark tells me you run your own company. That must be exciting. Her gaze was sharp, almost too interested. I nodded, feeling a mix of pride and wariness. Yeah, it's been quite the journey. We're in the tech sector, focusing on ag-driven solutions for small businesses. Fascinating. Her eyes gleamed as she leaned in. What kind of growth are you seeing? I hesitated. Mark gave me a reassuring nod, and I continued. We've seen about 200% growth in the last year. It's been wild. Vanessa's eyes widened. That's incredible. How do you manage that kind of expansion? I laughed, a little too nervously. Lots of late nights and coffee. We've got a great team, though. That makes all the difference. As the conversation went on, Vanessa's questions kept coming. More probing, more personal. At first, I was flattered. It felt good to talk shop with family, but as the night dragged on, something felt off. She started asking about our investors, our profit margins, even our security protocols. Just curious, she said with a laugh that sent a chill down my spine. Never know when I might want to start my own business, right? On the morning of my wedding, I was a bundle of nerves and excitement, my mind racing with anticipation. My best friend and maid of honor, Jenny, helped me into my dress. You look stunning, Lisa, she said, smoothing out the fabric. Mark is going to lose it when he sees you. I grinned, but something in her expression made me pause. What's wrong? Jenny bit her lip. It's probably nothing, but there's some weird vibes out there. People are whispering. My stomach tightened. Whispering about what? Just stuff about Technova. How you got your startup money. It's probably just pre-wedding jitters making people gossipy. I forced a smile, but my heart was pounding. At the reception, things got worse. Snippets of conversation floated through the air, stabbing at my chest. I heard she scanned her investors. Apparently, she stole classified info from her old job. My head spun. Where was this coming from? Then I saw her, Vanessa, standing with a group of guests, her voice loud and clear. I just think people should know the truth about Lisa's business practices, she said, her words dripping with venom. Fury surged through me. I marched over, keeping my smile tight and forced. Vanessa, can we talk? Privately? We stepped into a quiet corner, and I didn't waste a second. What the hell are you doing? I hissed. Vanessa feigned innocence, her eyes wide. Just sharing what I've heard. People have a right to know, don't they? No, I spat, barely keeping my voice steady. They don't have a right to lies. To the garbage you're spreading. Her expression hardened, her eyes narrowing to slits. Are they lies, Lisa? Or are you just mad you got caught? Before I could even respond, Mark appeared, his eyes darting between us. Everything okay? I turned to Mark, desperation flooding my voice. Mark, your sister is spreading lies about me, about Technova. Mark's face twists with confusion. What? Vanessa, is this true? Vanessa immediately dons a hurt expression, her voice dripping with feigned concern. I'm just worried, Mark. The things Lisa told me about her business, well, they seemed shady. I didn't want to say anything, but I was scared she might be taking advantage of you. Taking advantage. My voice rises, teetering on the edge of shouting. Mark, you know me. You know how hard I've worked. Mark shifts uncomfortably, glancing around. I'm sure it's just a misunderstanding. Let's not make a scene. A misunderstanding. I can barely believe the words coming out of his mouth. Your sister is accusing me of fraud on our wedding day, and you're worried about making a scene. Vanessa smirks, folding her arms with smug satisfaction. See how defensive she gets. Mark? Makes you wonder what she's hiding. I'm shaking now, trembling with rage and disbelief. I'm not hiding anything. My voice cracks as I turn to Mark, pleading. Mark, please, you have to believe me. He raises his hands, trying to placate me. Look, let's just enjoy the reception. We can sort this out later. I stare at him, my heart sinking. Sort it out later? This is our wedding day, and you're letting your sister ruin it with lies. Mark sighs. Lisa, please. It's not a big deal. Not a big deal. Tears burn in my eyes as I look at him, my voice barely a whisper. Your sister is trying to destroy my reputation, and you're acting like it's nothing. The rest of the reception blurs around me. I force a smile for the guests, but inside I'm seething. As we leave for our honeymoon, the tension between Mark and me is palpable, hanging thick in the air. In the limo, I can't hold back any longer. We need to talk about what happened. Mark rubs his temples, looking exhausted. Can't we just enjoy our honeymoon? A cold wave washes over me, chilling me to the core. This wasn't the man I thought I married. As we drive to the airport, a realization settles over me like a lead weight. Our relationship might be in more trouble than I ever imagined. Bali's sun blazes overhead, but all I feel is the chill creeping through me. My phone won't stop buzzing. It's Jake, my business partner. The 10th call. Finally, I pick up. Lisa, thank God. We're in deep. Jake's voice is frantic. Someone's trying to take over the company. My blood turns to ice. What? How? They're exploiting the loophole in our investor contracts, the one we were going to fix next month. Lisa, they know everything. Our financials, our plans, even that patent we were keeping under wraps. I feel sick. Jake, it's Vanessa. It has to be. She must have gotten into my files when she stayed at our place before the wedding. Jake's voice trembles. Your sister-in-law? Lisa, what do we do? I glance at Mark, who's watching me with concern. My heart hardens. I'm coming home. Book me the next flight. The plane ride home is a blur of panic and planning. When I land, Jake is waiting, looking haggard and worn. We rush to the office only to walk straight into chaos. Employees are panicking, investors are calling nonstop, and in the middle of it all, I see her. Vanessa, strutting around as if she owns the place. She spots me, her lips curling into a wicked smirk. Oh, Lisa. Back so soon from your honeymoon? Don't worry, I've been taking good care of things while you were gone. Fury boils over inside me. I march up to her, my voice shaking with rage. Get out of my office, Vanessa. Now. She laughs, the sound cruel and sharp. Your office? I think you'll find that ownership of this company is up for debate. Before I can respond, I hear Mark's voice behind me, sharp and full of confusion. Lisa, what the hell is going on? I spin around to see Mark standing in the doorway, his face a mix of anger and bewilderment. Mark, what are you doing here? He glares at me, his voice low and tense. I came to talk some sense into you. Vanessa told me everything. Vanessa slides up beside him, placing a hand on his arm, her smile smug. I'm so glad you're here, Mark. Maybe you can convince Lisa to do the right thing and hand over the company peacefully. I stare at the two of them, feeling the ground crumble beneath me. My husband and his sister, united against me. In that moment, I realize I'm truly alone in this fight. I take a deep breath, steeling myself. Vanessa, I know exactly what you're trying to do. It stops now. Vanessa scoffs, crossing her arms. You can't prove anything, Lisa. I meet her gaze, cold and unflinching. Maybe not yet. But I will, I say, turning to Mark, my voice steely. I can't believe you're falling for her lies. Mark looks torn, his face a mixture of guilt and confusion. Lisa, I don't know what to believe anymore. I shake my head, heart hardening. Then step back and let me handle this. I turn to Vanessa, locking eyes with her. You have 24 hours to drop this takeover attempt, or I'll bury you. Vanessa bursts out laughing, her voice dripping with disdain. Empty threats, Lisa. You've got nothing. As they leave, Jake approaches, looking anxious but determined. What's the plan, boss? I smile, the wheels in my mind already turning. We're setting a trap, Jake. I need you to create a fake business opportunity, something too good for Vanessa to resist. While Jake gets to work on our setup, I make another call. Sarah, it's Lisa. Remember when you said you owed me one? Well, I need a favor from your PI firm. Over the next week, the trap is carefully laid. Jake creates Biotech Innovations, a fake startup with cutting-edge medical technology that's all smoke and mirrors. Just the bait we need. Predictably, Vanessa can't resist. Over the next few days, we record her attempting to hack into biotech systems, steal proprietary information, and even bribe an employee, who is actually an undercover PI. Meanwhile, Sarah's team digs into Vanessa's past, and what they uncover is worse than I could have imagined. Finally, it's time for the showdown. I call for a family meeting. Mark, his parents, and Vanessa all gather in our living room, tension thick in the air. Mark looks at me, weary and confused. What's this about, Lisa? I take a deep breath, steadying myself. It's time for the truth to come out. I press play on the recordings, the room filling with Vanessa's voice as she commits her illegal activities, bribing, hacking, and scheming. Mark and his parents watch in horror, their faces drained of color. But that's not all. Vanessa, I say coldly, has a long history of fraud and identity theft. 3 states, to be exact. Vanessa jumps to her feet, her voice shaking. You can't prove any of this. I smile, icy and confident. Actually, I can. And so can the FBI agents waiting outside. As if on cue, there's a firm knock at the door. 2 agents enter, badges out, walking straight to Vanessa. Vanessa Thompson, here under arrest for multiple counts of fraud, identity theft, and corporate espionage. Vanessa's face drains of all color as they cuff her. She whirls on Mark, screaming, Mark, do something. But Mark just stares, shell-shocked, unable to move. His parents are in tears, shattered by the truth. As the agents lead Vanessa out, her screams fade into the background. I turn to Mark, my voice calm but firm. I'm sorry it came to this, but I had to protect myself. And my company. Mark looks at me, devastated. Lisa, I don't know what to say. I shake my head, the finality of the moment sinking in. You don't have to say anything, but we both know this marriage is over. In the weeks that follow, everything changes. Vanessa's arrest makes headlines and more victims come forward, sharing their stories of her betrayal. Technova's reputation is restored, stronger than ever. We expand globally, our success undeniable. As for Mark, the last I heard, he was struggling to find work. Turns out, being associated with a fraudster isn't great for your resume. And me? I'm doing just fine on my own. Better than fine, actually. I've learned a valuable lesson in business and in life. Trust your gut and always watch your back. And that's the end of my story, folks. Now I've got a question for you. If you were in my shoes, would you have given Mark a second chance? Or did I make the right call cutting ties completely? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I'm curious to hear what you would do in this situation. And if you enjoyed this wild ride, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more stories of revenge, betrayal, and triumph. Your support means the world to me and helps keep these real-life dramas coming your way. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video. Hey everyone, I'm Sarah Johnson, a 24-year-old artist from Chicago trying to make a name for myself in the art world. Things haven't exactly been smooth lately, but I've got quite the story to share with you all. It started with a text from my cousin Mark. Hey cuz, how about spending the summer at my farm in Iowa? Might help get those creative juices flowing. I stared at my phone, glancing around my tiny, cluttered apartment full of half-finished canvases and overdue bills. Was this really the escape I needed? As if reading my mind, Mark followed up, "You still there, Sarah?" "Yeah, sorry, just thinking." "Actually, it sounds perfect. When can I come?" "Whenever you want. The sooner the better. We've got plenty of space." I looked around at my cramped studio one last time. "How about next week?" "Perfect. Can't wait to see you." I hung up and immediately called my mom to tell her the plan. Ever since the divorce, our relationship had been tense. "Iowa?" she said with a sneer. "What could you possibly find there?" "Inspiration, maybe. I need a break, Mom." "Well, don't come crying to me if it doesn't work out." "I won't, Mom. I've got this." I ended the call, feeling a strange mix of excitement and unease. A week later, I was driving down a dusty country road, surrounded by miles of endless cornfields. Eventually, Mark's farm came into view, like something out of a postcard, complete with a red barn and a white farmhouse. Mark was waiting outside, waving me in with that big, goofy smile of his. "Sarah, you made it." "Hey, Mark, thanks for letting me crash here." "Crash? Your family. Come on in. Let's get you settled." The house was warm, cozy, and inviting. Mark's wife, Lisa, was in the kitchen, baking something that smelled amazing. "Sarah, this is my wife, Lisa," Mark said. Lisa wiped her hands on her apron, flashing me a bright smile before pulling me into a warm hug. "So glad you're here. Hope you like apple pie." "Who doesn't?" I laughed, feeling more at ease. As we sat around the kitchen table, Mark asked about my art. "Still chasing that dream, huh?" "I'm trying, but it's been tough lately. I guess you could say I've hit a block." "Well, you're in the right place. Nothing but peace and quiet around here. If you want, you can even help out around the farm. Might give you a fresh perspective." "I like that," I said, feeling hopeful for the first time in months. That night, as I unpacked in the guest room, I heard the rumble of a truck outside. Curiosity got the best of me, so I peeked out the window. A rugged-looking man was talking to Mark. The next morning, Mark introduced me to him. "Sarah, this is Tom, our farmhand. Tom, this is my cousin Sarah. She'll be with us for the summer." "Nice to meet you," Tom said, his expression unreadable. As the days passed, I started to settle into the slower rhythm of farm life. The fresh air and wide open spaces were exactly what I needed. I even started sketching again, inspired by the endless rolling fields and sunsets that stretched across the sky. One evening, as I was watching the sun dip below the horizon, Mark joined me on the porch. "So how are you liking it here so far?" he asked. "It's beautiful, Mark." "Really? Thanks for having me." "Of course. Sarah, I was thinking, since you're staying the whole summer, maybe you could pitch in a little more." "Nothing too hard, just some extra chores here and there." "Sure, I'd be happy to help," I said, not realizing how much I'd regret those words. At first, the tasks were manageable, feeding the chickens, helping Lisa in the garden. But soon, Mark was waking me up at dawn to muck out the stables and fix broken fences. "Mark, this is getting to be a bit much," I said, frustration creeping into my voice. "I came here to focus on my art, remember." "Art doesn't put food on the table, Sarah. You're eating our food, aren't you?" I bit my lip, trying to stay calm. "Of course, and I'm grateful, but—" But then Mark's patience snapped. "Quit complaining and get to work," he barked. Days blurred together in a haze of exhaustion. One morning, as I dragged myself to the kitchen, I noticed something strange. My phone wasn't where I left it. Hey Lisa, have you seen my phone? I asked, trying to sound casual. She avoided my eyes. No, sorry. Maybe you left it in the barn. I searched everywhere, but it was gone. So were my car keys. Panic began to rise in my chest. I found Mark in the yard. Mark, I can't find my phone or keys. I need to call my mom. He scoffed, not even looking at me. What for? To complain? You're fine here. That's when I met Karen, Mark's mother. She'd arrived unannounced, eyeing me like I was some kind of parasite. So this is the freeloader, she said, her voice thick with judgment. Mom, Mark said sharply, this is Sarah. She's helping out around the farm. Karen looked me up and down, unimpressed. Doesn't look like she's doing much helping to me. I opened my mouth to defend myself, but Mark cut me off, his voice cold. Don't worry, Mom. I'll make sure she earns her keep. After that, everything got worse. If I didn't finish my chores to Mark's satisfaction, he'd withhold meals. You don't work, you don't eat. That's how it is here, he said, smiling like it was a joke. I tried to reason with him. Mark, this isn't right. I'm your cousin, not your slave. His eyes narrowed, and a dangerous edge crept into his voice. You ungrateful little, after everything we've done for you. I flinched, shocked by his anger. That's when Tom, the farmhand, stepped in. Boss, maybe you should ease up a bit, Tom said, his voice quiet but firm. Mark rounded on him, his face flushed with rage. Mind your own business, Tom, or you'll be looking for a new job. Tom backed off, but later, when he found me alone, he whispered, I'm sorry, Sarah. Mark's done this before. What do you mean? Last summer, it was his nephew. Kid came to stay, ended up working himself to the bone. Left in the middle of the night. A chill ran down my spine. Why don't you say something? Tom looked away, his face clouded with regret. It's not that simple. Mark's got dirt on me. I can't afford to lose this job. I nodded, understanding but feeling more isolated than ever. One day, desperate to escape the relentless grind, I snuck out to the barn where I'd hidden my art supplies. Painting was my only refuge, but when I opened the door, I found my canvases slashed and my paint scattered across the floor. No, no, I whispered, dropping to my knees, tears blurring my vision. Oops, Mark's voice came from behind me, smug and taunting. Guess there was an accident in here. Shame. I turned to him, my voice breaking. Why are you doing this? Because you're here to work, not play with your little hobby. Now clean this mess up and get back to your chores. He muttered as he walked away, useless city girl. I stared at the ruined remnants of my art supplies, something inside me snapping. This wasn't about chores anymore. Mark was trying to break me. That night, as I lay in bed, muscles aching and stomach growling, I made a decision. I had to get out, no matter what. But how? With no phone, no car, and miles from the nearest town, I was trapped. The next morning, while lugging a heavy bucket of milk across the yard, I tripped over a root. The bucket slipped from my grasp, crashing to the ground. Milk splashed everywhere. You clumsy idiot. Mark's voice thundered behind me. I turned, stammering an apology, but his hand came out of nowhere. The slap was so hard, it knocked me off balance. I tasted blood. That night, after everyone had gone to bed, I snuck out to find Tom. He was in the barn, startled when he saw me. Sarah, what are you doing out here? I need your help, Tom. I have to get out of here. His eyes widened in alarm. It's not safe. Mark will. I don't care what Mark will do. I can't stay here another day. Please. Tom was silent for a long moment before he finally nodded. All right, tomorrow night. I'll leave my truck unlocked. Keys will be under the floor mat. Thank you, I whispered, a flicker of hope kindling in my chest for the first time in months. The next night dragged on forever. I packed my few belongings into a small bag and waited for the house to fall silent. Hours ticked by. Just as I was reaching for the back door, a light flicked on in the kitchen. Who's there? Karen's voice called out. I ducked behind the couch, my heart pounding in my ears. I held my breath, praying she wouldn't investigate further. After an eternity, I heard her shuffle back upstairs, grumbling. Once the coast was clear, I slipped out into the cool night air. I sprinted across the yard to Tom's truck, my pulse racing. As I pulled out of the driveway, headlights suddenly blazed to life behind me. Mark's truck. He must have heard the engine, I muttered, slamming my foot on the gas. Mark was right behind me, honking and flashing his lights. Come on, I urged, pushing the old truck as fast as it would go. Up ahead, I spotted a sharp bend in the road with a small dirt path branching off. In a split-second decision, I cut the headlights and swerved onto the path. I heard Mark's truck roar past, continuing down the main road. I killed the engine and sat in the pitch-black silence, barely breathing. Minutes passed, but Mark didn't turn back. I had lost him. Hands shaking, I restarted the truck and drove slowly, carefully in the opposite direction from where Mark had gone. An hour later, the lights of a small town flickered in the distance, and tears of relief streamed down my face as I pulled into the parking lot of a 24-hour diner. I was free, battered, exhausted, and wearing nothing but torn work clothes. But I was free. My legs shook as I stepped out of the truck, each step feeling surreal after the nightmare I'd endured. I stumbled inside, the warmth of the diner contrasting sharply with the cold weight of my memories. The waitress took one look at me, her eyes widening, and without saying a word, she picked up the phone. The next thing I knew, I was being taken to a women's shelter. "You're safe now," a counselor named Anna told me softly. "Take all the time you need to heal." For days, I did nothing but sleep and cry. The trauma of what I'd lived through felt like an anchor dragging me down. But slowly, I started to feel a glimmer of strength return. When I finally felt ready, I called my mom. "Sarah, where have you been?" "I've been worried sick." Her voice cracked with emotion. "Mom, I need to tell you everything." I poured out my story, every horrific detail. When I finished, the silence on the other end of the line was thick with shock. Then I heard her crying. "I'm so sorry, honey," she sobbed. "I should have been there for you. Can I come see you?" Our reunion was raw, filled with tears and long overdue healing. As I recovered, I found solace in art again. I started sketching, first as an escape, then as a way to process my pain. Anna noticed. "Have you thought about sharing your story through your art?" she asked one afternoon. That question ignited something inside me. I began pouring my experiences onto the pages of a graphic novel, each stroke of the pen both painful and cathartic. Months passed, and I posted a few pages online. To my surprise, they spread like wildfire. "Sarah, you've got to see this," Anna said one morning, showing me her tablet. My story had gone viral. "The police soon contacted me. We're opening an investigation into your cousin's farm," the detective said after our interview. Then Tom called. "Sarah, I saw your story online." His voice was shaky, but determined. I want to help. I've got evidence of what Mark's been doing." With Tom's testimony and the traction from my graphic novel, things escalated quickly. The farm was raided. What they found was worse than I imagined. Other victims, financial records, and proof of Mark's exploitation. Lisa, Mark's wife, left him, looking dazed and broken as she gave her statement to the police. Meanwhile, a publisher reached out about my graphic novel. "We want to publish your story, Sarah," they said. "It's powerful." I couldn't believe it. My art, born from such darkness, was becoming my salvation. Months later, I stood in a gallery in Chicago, surrounded by blown-up panels from my book. Friends, family, and strangers moved through the exhibit, many with tears in their eyes. My mom stood beside me, squeezing my hand. "I'm so proud of you, sweetie," she whispered. As I mingled with the crowd, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Tom. "Just heard, Mark's been sentenced. 15 years for labor trafficking and tax evasion. It's over, Sarah." As I locked up the gallery that night, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. I had survived. More than that, I had thrived. My story was out there, maybe even helping others escape similar situations. Walking out into the cool Chicago night, I felt strong, unbreakable, ready for whatever life threw at me. Because now I knew I could handle it. I was a survivor, an artist, and a voice for the voiceless. And no one, not Mark, not anyone, could ever take that away from me again. That's the end of my story, everyone. But now, I have a question for you. If you were in my shoes, would you have tried to help Lisa escape too, or was leaving her behind the right call? It's a tough situation. She enabled Mark's abuse, but she was also a victim. What would you have done? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Your perspective could help someone going through something similar. And if this story resonated with you, please give it a like and share. It helps spread awareness about these hidden forms of abuse. If you want to hear more stories like mine, hit that subscribe button. Together, we can shine a light on these issues and help others find their strength. Thanks for listening. My name is Sarah Thompson, and I'm a 28-year-old elementary school teacher from a quiet Midwestern town. Little did I know, my life was about to take a dark and unexpected turn, unraveling secrets that would shake everything I thought I knew about my family. It was a crisp autumn evening when I received the phone call that changed everything. My father, David Thompson, had been rushed to the hospital. As I sped through the dimly lit streets, my heart pounded with worry. Dad had always been my anchor, especially since losing Mom when I was just 15. "Please, Dad, you have to be okay," I whispered, gripping the steering wheel. When I arrived at the hospital, I found my stepmother Linda, who had been in my life for the past 3 years, pacing in the waiting room. Her usually impeccable hair was in disarray, and mascara streaks ran down her cheeks. "Sarah, thank God you're here," Linda said, her voice shaky. "The doctors won't tell me anything." Just then, a doctor approached us, his expression serious. "Are you David Thompson's family?" "Yes, I'm his daughter." "How is he?" I asked, my heart in my throat. The doctor's face softened slightly. "I'm sorry, but your father is in critical condition. We're doing everything we can, but you should prepare yourselves." The next few days blurred into one, machines beeping, hushed voices, and endless prayers. I rarely left Dad's side, holding his hand and reminiscing about happier times. Linda came and went, always on her phone, which I tried to dismiss as her way of coping. On the fourth day, as I dozed in an uncomfortable chair, I felt a faint squeeze on my hand. Startled, I opened my eyes to see Dad staring at me, his gaze sharp despite his frailty. "Sarah," he whispered, his voice barely audible, "the safe in my office. The combination is your birthday. You need to." Suddenly, the machines erupted into a frenzy of alarms. Dad's eyes rolled back as his body convulsed. I screamed for help, watching in helpless terror as doctors rushed in. They worked frantically, pressing defibrillator paddles to his chest. "Clear," the doctor shouted, but Dad's body fell still. "Time of death, 10:47 p.m., the doctor announced softly. My world shattered. I collapsed to the floor, my sobs echoing through the sterile room. Linda held me, but her embrace felt cold, distant. Through my grief, Dad's final words haunted me. What was in the safe? Why had he been so desperate for me to find it? The funeral was a solemn affair. As I stood by the graveside, I noticed my Uncle Robert lingering at the back of the crowd. Our eyes met, and a chill ran down my spine. There had always been tension between him and Dad, but the look he gave me was different, darker, almost triumphant. That night, unable to sleep, I made a decision. Tomorrow, I would open the safe. Whatever secret Dad had left for me, I had to know. The morning after the funeral, I stood in front of Dad's office door, my hand trembling as it hovered over the doorknob. The house was eerily quiet. Linda had left for a business meeting, something that struck me as odd considering the circumstances. Taking a deep breath, I stepped inside. Dad's presence lingered in every corner, the faint scent of his cologne, the familiar disarray of papers on his desk. My eyes locked onto the safe, hidden behind a landscape painting. With shaking fingers, I entered the combination, my birthday, just as Dad had said. The safe door swung open with a soft click. Inside was a stack of documents and a sealed envelope with my name scrawled across it. My heart raced as I opened the letter, unfolding the familiar handwriting. "Sarah, my darling daughter, if you're reading this, something has happened to me. I only hope I had the chance to tell you in person. But if not, you must know the truth. Your life is in danger. Linda and Robert are not who they claim to be." Suddenly, a noise from downstairs startled me. Footsteps, closer, too close. Panic surged through me as I shoved the letter and documents into my bag. I barely had time to close the safe and replace the painting when the door to the office burst open. Uncle Robert stood there, his expression a mask of false concern. "Sarah, dear, I've been looking all over for you. The lawyer's here for the will reading." I forced a smile, my heart racing. My mind was spinning. "Of course, I'll be right down." In the living room, a stern-faced lawyer I'd never seen before sat beside Linda, who was dabbing at her eyes with a handkerchief. Robert guided me to a seat, his hand on my shoulder heavy with something that felt more like a threat than comfort. The will reading was a blur of legal jargon. But one thing became painfully clear. Everything, every last penny, every piece of property had been left to Linda. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. There must be some mistake, I protested, glancing between the lawyer and Linda. Dad would never. Before I could finish, Robert cut in, his voice sugary sweet. Now, Sarah, your father clearly wanted to ensure Linda was taken care of. I'm sure you want that too, don't you? Linda reached out and patted my hand, her touch icy, like she was trying to calm a wild animal rather than comfort me. I'll make sure you're provided for. Don't worry, she said, a small smug smile tugging at her lips. I yanked my hand away, bile rising in my throat. This is wrong. All of it. I barely held back tears as I fled to Emily's house. As soon as I spilled the entire story to her, showing her dad's letter, her eyes widened in disbelief. Sarah, this is insane. You have to go to the police. I shook my head. With what proof? A half-burnt letter. I need more. That night, my mind raced, replaying everything. Hushed phone calls, secretive glances between Linda and Robert, Dad's increasing paranoia. Something wasn't right, and I had to get to the bottom of it. The next morning, I drove to Dad's office building, determined to find answers. As I approached, I saw Michael, Dad's old friend and longtime lawyer, exiting the building. His face was drawn, confused. Sarah, he called out, hurrying over. I'm so sorry about your father. Michael, did you know about the will? I interrupted, my heart pounding. He frowned. Will? David asked me to draw up a new 1 month ago, leaving everything to you. But we never finalized it. He kept talking about protecting you from something, but wouldn't say what. My blood ran cold. That's not the will that was read yesterday, I whispered, a sick feeling in my stomach. Michael's face paled. Sarah, what exactly is going on here? Before I could answer, a black SUV screeched to a halt beside us. The tinted window rolled down, revealing Robert's cold, taunting smile. Sarah, Linda's been looking everywhere for you, he said smoothly. Why don't you come with me? We have so much to discuss. I glanced at Michael, fear reflected in his wide eyes. I can't trust anyone anymore. My heart pounded as I stared at Robert's menacing smile through the SUV window. In a split-second decision, I grabbed Michael's arm and bolted toward his car. Drive, I yelled as we scrambled inside. Without hesitation, Michael peeled out of the parking lot, the SUV roaring to life behind us. What the hell is going on, Sarah? Michael demanded, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. I quickly filled him in on the fake will and Dad's cryptic warning. Michael's face went ghostly pale. This is bigger than we thought, he muttered. We need help. We picked up Emily and regrouped at Michael's office, piecing together the puzzle. A chilling picture emerged. Robert, drowning in gambling debts, had teamed up with Linda to steal Dad's fortune. But how deep did the deception go? We need proof, Emily said, her investigative instincts kicking in. Security footage, handwriting samples, anything that can show the will was forged. Michael nodded grimly. I'll pull David's banking records. If there's been any unusual activity, we'll find it. As they worked, I remembered Jessica, Dad's longtime assistant. If anyone knew Dad's recent movements, it would be her. I quickly called her and arranged to meet at a quiet cafe. When she arrived, her eyes were red-rimmed with worry. She slid into the booth across from me, squeezing my hand. I've been so worried about you, Sarah, she said, voice trembling. Your father, he knew something was wrong. He made me promise to give you this if anything happened to him. She pressed a small flash drive into my palm. Hope surged through me as I closed my fingers around it. Back at Michael's office, we huddled around the computer as I plugged in the drive. A video of Dad appeared on the screen, his voice thick with emotion. Sarah, if you're watching this, I'm gone. Linda isn't who she claims to be. I discovered she's been married multiple times, always to wealthy men who died under suspicious circumstances. She's working with Robert. But I don't know how deep the conspiracy goes. Be careful who you trust. Dad's voice warned from the video, a tremor in his tone. I've hidden evidence in the old cabin. I love you, sweetheart. Stay safe. The video ended, leaving us frozen in stunned silence. We need to get to that cabin, Emily said, already grabbing her coat and heading for the door. As we drove to the secluded family vacation spot, Michael's phone rang. It was the private investigator he'd hired. "You're not going to believe this," Michael said, his voice tense after hanging up. "Linda's real name is Eleanor Blackwood. She's wanted in 3 states for identity fraud and embezzlement." At the cabin, we found a hidden safe behind a loose board in the wall. Inside were documents detailing Robert and Linda's entire scheme, how they planned to seize Dad's fortune, and how far they'd gone to cover their tracks. Armed with this damning evidence, we decided it was time to confront Robert. We found him at Dad's house, frantically packing a suitcase, his face drained of color when he saw us. "It's over, Robert," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "We know everything." His shoulders slumped and his voice cracked. "I never wanted to hurt David. The debts. Linda said she could fix everything. I didn't know she was planning to." He couldn't finish the sentence, but the implication hung heavy in the air. Dad's death might not have been natural after all. Suddenly, the screech of tires outside shattered the silence. We rushed to the window just as Linda's SUV sped away, sirens wailing in the distance. My heart sank. I realized then, this wasn't over. Linda was still out there, and she had nothing left to lose. The truth behind Dad's death was still shrouded in mystery, but I was determined to uncover it, no matter the cost. With Robert's confession and the mountain of evidence we had gathered, justice for Dad was within reach. But as I watched the flashing lights of the police cars paint the darkening sky, a cold knot of fear tightened in my chest. The most dangerous part of this ordeal was still ahead. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of legal proceedings and police interviews. I stood firm, presenting all the evidence we had uncovered to the authorities. The forged will was quickly invalidated, and Robert faced the consequences of his actions. Watching Robert being led away in handcuffs, I felt a strange mix of sadness and relief. He betrayed our family, but in the end, his confession had been crucial in unraveling the entire conspiracy. The search for Linda intensified. Her face was plastered across news channels and billboards, but she seemed to have vanished into thin air. I knew it was only a matter of time before justice caught up with her. 3 months after Dad's death, the call I'd been waiting for came. Linda had been arrested trying to cross the Canadian border, her trunk packed with cash and fake passports. The officer on the phone assured me that, with the evidence we had, Linda would be facing a long sentence behind bars. With the legal battles finally over, I inherited Dad's business and our family home. Standing in his office, surrounded by his things, I made a decision. I would use part of my inheritance to start a scholarship fund in Dad's name, helping underprivileged kids in our community pursue their dreams. As the months passed, I found a new rhythm in my life. I threw myself into teaching, my students' bright faces reminding me daily of the good in the world. In the evenings, I pored over the books of Dad's business, determined to keep his legacy alive. 1 year to the day after Dad's passing, I stood at his grave, a bouquet of his favorite flowers in my hands. The pain of loss was still there, but it had softened, now mixed with gratitude for the time we'd had and the lessons he taught me. The story of Sarah Thompson's fight for justice has come to an end. But now we turn to you, our viewers. If you were in Sarah's position, would you have forgiven Robert for his role in the conspiracy, given his eventual cooperation? Or do you believe his actions were unforgivable, no matter his remorse? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your perspective could shed light on the complex nature of betrayal and redemption. If you enjoyed this thrilling tale of family secrets and perseverance, please consider liking this video and subscribing to our channel for more captivating stories. Your support helps us continue bringing you engaging content like Sarah's journey.